G'day cocktail lovers, I hope you've been keeping well. I hope you're ready for a cocktail, and this one is a tad unusual. It dates back to the 1930s Waldorf Astoria cocktail book, and this collection of spirit that goes into it in equal parts does not seem to make sense from a modern perspective. If you're going to make this along with me, you will need to get your gin, a rye whiskey, a brandy, and a vermouth. Now, if you are at all well versed in how cocktail theory works these days, that probably doesn't make sense to you. Those things don't go together. And if you're not that deeply immersed in cocktail culture and you're not sure why I'm saying that's weird, the short version is that combination of ingredients on the surface seems to be a crime against God and man, particularly the gin and the whiskey. You do not see that very often, and particularly those four elements in equal parts. But it worked back in the 30s. The only question is, does it work now? This cocktail is called the Chauncey, and as I said, it dates back to at least the 1930s. And a lot of those older cocktails don't really work in a modern setting, and a lot of modern bartenders have been adapting old recipes and making them a bit more balanced. Now, I found this on the Punch Drink website with the article headed "Bring Back the Chauncey," and it was a very interesting read. The people who've been bringing it back in the modern era, they thought, surely that's not balanced. I'm going to adjust some of those measures. And what they found is changing the measures made a less good cocktail. Those equal measures, while by modern sensitivities being very counterintuitive, those equal measures actually worked. The hint was, make one of the elements stand out. So if you have a very bold gin, make that the hero, although it's equal parts. Or maybe you have a very bold rye, maybe you have a very bold brandy. But the idea is make one of them stand out and make the other elements support it. In my case, the boldest one I'm going to use is the rye. I'm going to use Rittenhouse Rye 100 proof. But first up, we are going to go with the gin. I'm using a local gin from Patient Wolf. I've used it in videos on this channel before. It's really nice. It's called their Summertime Gin. But yeah, use the gin of your choice. But we're going equal parts. In this case, it's 3/4 of an ounce of each element. So starting off, 22.5 mils of gin. Next up comes the brandy component. As I said, use the one you like. It might be a cognac, an armagnac, or a brandy of various ages. This is another local product. This is from South Australia's 23rd Street distillery. I do love the name. They call it Not Your Nana's Brandy. It's very tasty. So the next step is 3/4 of an ounce, 22.5 mils of brandy. I've chosen the rye to be the boldest element of this cocktail. So I'm going with Rittenhouse Rye, the good old bottled in bond, 100 proof, 50% alcohol. But whichever one you choose, we're going 3/4 of an ounce, 22.5 mils of rye whiskey. The fourth equal part element is Sweet Vermouth. Once again, use the vermouth of your choice, or what you have at hand. I like this one. Well, this is one of the local ones I like. This is from an Australian maker called Maiden Eye. They're Sweet Vermouth. So whichever one you choose, we are going to do 3/4 of an ounce, 22.5 mils of Sweet Vermouth. Finally, we're going to add 2 dashes of orange bitters. The Punch Drink recipe actually recommend Regan's orange bitters. I have Fee Brothers, which I quite like. Interestingly, some people do a mix of Fee Brothers and Regan's because they kind of like both elements and they put them together and they call that Fegans. But whichever one you have, we're going to add 2 dashes of orange bitters. This is a stirred cocktail, so we want to add some ice to our glass. Incidentally, if you ever wondered why I don't crack ice on camera, because I'm super bad at it. So if you've ever tried cracking big bits of ice and it's just gone everywhere, you think, how do the cool kids do it? And you feel really bad, you and me, we're in this together. So yeah, I've got some ice in there. You didn't need to see the mess I made doing it. So I'm going to stir that for about 10 to 15 seconds. And I may not have Regan's orange bitters, but I do have Gaz Regan's finger to stir it. So we'll just chill that, get a little bit of dilution happening, and ready to put it into our glass. Now I have my chilled glass, one of my new coupes. I've got the Hawthorn strainer ready to strain it in. Get that in that glass. It's a very nice colour, a very golden cocktail, the good old Chauncey. But now how does that very unlikely collection of equal parts work together? Okay, here's what to me is unusual. The initial taste for something that is equal parts all alcohol doesn't taste that boozy. Now it has a really nice sort of journey on the palate. It's very warm going down, and because I used the rye whiskey as the boldest part of that, definitely feel the rye going down, but to my mind, unexpectedly, they work together. It's not necessarily going to be to everyone's taste, but if you enjoy, classic boozy sippers, particularly if you've enjoyed things like a Manhattan or a Boulevardier, that type of classic boozy sipper, I think this one will appeal to you. It's much less well known. Maybe it's going to make a comeback. Yep, and of course it's endlessly adaptable. You could use a more bold gin to be the feature of it. You could use a more bold brandy to be the feature of it. Like you said, in my case, I used the rye as the dominant flavour in here. But it works really well. It's just a different boozy sipper to try. And those 4 equal parts on the surface don't seem to make sense, but somehow they come together into a really quite nicely balanced drink. So maybe the Chauncey will make a comeback. We'll see if this starts appearing in bars in the next couple of years. I'm happy to have it here in my home bar. Maybe you'll try it in yours as well. But either way, I'm glad you were along for this little adventure. This was definitely an experiment. I did test this ahead of time because I was very dubious, and yeah, the thing that stood out on the first sip, it's like that initially does not taste that boozy, but then you get the whole spectrum of flavours across the palate. So if you are at all fond of the stir drinks, the very boozy sippers, I think you will like a Chauncey. It seems a bit odd, those 4 equal parts, but somehow, magically, it works. So give it a go, and I hope you enjoy it. Hope you enjoyed the video, and look, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, it would be great if you did. Hit the little notification bell so you know when I upload, and I will be back again soon with a little more in the world of cocktail adventures, because there's so much to explore. Why don't we do it together? I'd love to see you around, but in the meantime, look after yourself, look after people around you. It would be great to see you again soon, but until such time as I do see you again, I'll leave you with cheers.